Hello, happy Friday, and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for October 11th, 2024, 10/11/24, the 285th day of the year, the second of 4 Fridays this month, and it's World Egg Day.
The incredible edible egg.
Remember that old slogan, and shout out to all my Jewish friends and Jewish listeners and viewers of Newsmax. The holiday of Yom Kippur begins at sundown today. Thank you to Kay Smythe, who did a fantastic job on yesterday's Newsmax Daily in hurricane relief. And today, the cleanup is continuing across the state of Florida, where officials have confirmed at least 16 deaths now related to Hurricane Milton. Several people were killed by tornadoes on Florida's east coast, even though Milton made landfall on the west coast, where the vast majority of flooding and damage is. And I heard a really interesting statistic yesterday during all the hurricane coverage. Thursday, during the storm, were the most tornado warnings and the most tornadoes ever to touch down in the state of Florida in one day. This is St. Petersburg Police Chief Anthony Holloway.
There's a lot of fatigue that's starting to sit in with people. So we're just trying to make sure that we can tell everybody that, it's going to be okay. We just got to turn the corner. And we'll be fine. We'll get through this together.
St. Petersburg and St. Petersburg Beach is kind of its own little peninsula off the Gulf of Mexico and the Bay of Tampa Bay. And that's where you may have seen the roof blown off the top of Tropicana Field, where the Tampa Bay Rays baseball team plays. And they were also housing first responders in the stadium. The Tampa Bay Lightning's home opener, as the NHL season gets underway, has been canceled. That was supposed to be tomorrow night against the Carolina Hurricanes, ironically enough. And this is President Biden addressing questions about hurricane relief efforts after his painful-to-watch speech at the White House yesterday.
That $750 that they're talking about, but Mr. Trump and all those other people know it's a lie to suggest that's all they're going to get. That's bizarre. It's bizarre. They got to stop this. They're being so damn un-American with the way they're talking about this stuff.
Mr. President, have you spoken with former President Trump at all?
Are you kidding me? Mr. President Trump, former President Trump, get a life, man. Help these people.
Why is he telling Donald Trump to help those people? Trump isn't the current president. Vice President Harris made similar remarks about false information being put out there while campaigning in Arizona yesterday. As Kay mentioned yesterday, have you heard anything positive from the people of Asheville, North Carolina, or Boone, North Carolina, or the Hawaii fires a couple of years ago, or East Palestine, Ohio, where we had the toxic train derailment last year? This is former President Donald Trump speaking at the Detroit Economic Club yesterday.
Before we begin, I want to send our love to everyone affected by the hurricane. As you know, it was a rough night, and it's who would have thought a lot of things happening at one time. But that's just ripped through Florida and also the people of North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, Florida again, and Tennessee for what they went through with Hurricane Helene. We had quite a combination. I'd like to congratulate governors of Florida, Ron DeSantis, Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia and South Carolina, Henry McMaster. They were really hit hard, and they've done really a fantastic job. The federal government, on the other hand, has not done what you're supposed to be doing. In particular, with respect to North Carolina, they've let those people suffer unjustly. And we're praying for all of those who lost a house or, much more importantly, a precious loved one. And there were many in Georgia and North Carolina. Florida will rebuild and come back strong. It always does. I look forward to returning very soon. We'll be there very soon. And okay, now let's get to the reason that I'm here today. I think you're going to find some interesting things, both good and bad, but we make the bad into good. That's what we like to do. It was just announced that inflation came in substantially hotter than expected last month, double what was predicted, with much of the gain coming from food prices going up. rent and housing costs going up and car prices going up. Interest rates, as you know, are also a big factor. They're very high. They've gone from 2% when I was in office to 10% now, and you can't get the money. That means it's much higher than 10%, which really kills the American dream for young people. We have a lot of young people here, a lot of college people here.
Trump at the Detroit Economic Club, where he also said he plans on making auto loans tax deductible, which would likely give a boost to the auto industry. And by the way, if your weekend plans include shopping for a home because you've heard mortgage rates were finally coming down, well, rates for a 30-year mortgage jumped back to 6.32% today, the biggest one-week increase since April. Back on Monday, I played the Sunday 60 Minutes tease of the Kamala Harris interview, right? That was kind of how the week started off with all the Kamala 60 Minutes stuff, right? And then the actual interview would be aired on Monday. And I said, this is another taped and edited interview, right? I made a point of saying that it's taped and edited.
The other big news is the fraud committed by 60 Minutes and CBS, together with the Democrat Party, working together with them, which will go down as the single biggest scandal in broadcast history, I predict. It's a big story. I don't know if you've seen it yet. Happened. They learned about it yesterday evening. The real answer of Kamala was very crazy or dumb. Nobody knows what, but it was bad. So they actually replaced it. Think of this. They've never done that for me. They actually replaced it with another answer, having nothing to do with what she said before. They took another thing that she said and they just lopped it in there. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. 60 Minutes, nobody's ever seen. And they wanted to make her look as good as possible, make her look better.
Again, Donald Trump in Detroit yesterday, and I don't understand why anyone is surprised by this now. It's becoming a big thing that, they edited the interview and they played the best parts. Well, that's just like the CNN interview with Kamala and Tim Walz, right? I mean, I don't understand why this is a surprise from anybody. Here's more from Rob Schmitt.
Earlier this week, 60 Minutes interviewed Kamala Harris. Now, the day before the interview actually aired, on Sunday, CBS aired a teaser clip of that interview where Kamala sounds completely clueless on Israel. Here's the teaser.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
What? This is Kamala. That's Kamala Harris. That's the brain of the person that wants to run your country. Not great. 24 hours later, 60 Minutes actually aired. They aired a special on Monday night. Usually on Sunday, they did one on Monday. And when it aired, although Bill Whitaker, to his credit, and I've said this all week, did a great job calling out Kamala's vast and flaky platform of nonsense, but we did notice that she certainly sounded a heck of a lot better on Israel.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Oh, well, that was certainly better. What exactly happened in those 24 hours between when the teaser clip aired and everybody at the Kamala campaign said, holy crap, are you watching Face the Nation? Because that looked awful. And when 60 Minutes aired and then suddenly Kamala Harris looks like she's at least somewhat competent. I don't know. Was a phone call made? I don't know. Editing a presidential candidate to make her sound more competent is just one of many ways the mainstream establishment media operates today. And with Donald Trump, as you know, it's exactly the opposite.
Personally, I thought Kamala's first answer on Benjamin Netanyahu was actually better, or at least less convoluted than the answer that they aired in the interview. And that's only half the story. Rob now goes on to explain what happened between CBS and Donald Trump, who refused the interview.
Trump was set to be interviewed for that same election special on Monday. He bailed out after CBS refused to publicly apologize for claiming that Hunter's laptop was fake news when they interviewed Trump just before the 2020 election. Trump bailing out, of course, infuriated CBS News. Monday night, Scott Pelley introduced the episode of 60 Minutes by effectively calling Trump a coward and calling Trump a liar.
Trump said he needed an apology for his interview in 2020. Trump claims correspondent Leslie Stahl said in that interview that Hunter Biden's controversial laptop came from Russia. She never said that.
She never said that. Pelley telling millions of Americans on Monday Trump used a bogus excuse to bail out of this interview, making Trump look afraid to face the network. In reality, Trump is fully telling the truth. CBS is lying right to your face, in the face of millions of voters, just like they did in 2020. And it's easily provable. Here's Leslie Stahl before that 2020 interview with Trump even began.
As we moved from subject to subject, our conversation grew more tense. President Trump brought up what he calls the unfairness of the fake media, most prominently, a lack of coverage of his unproven and unverified charges that former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter have received millions of dollars in corrupt payments from a Russian oligarch and a Chinese billionaire.
Unproven and unverified. Now, to be fair, Pelley is playing a semantics game to get away with this and to get away with duping all of us. She didn't technically say that the laptop was Russian, and we don't really know if that's all Trump said about it either, but that's what he claims. But she's pointing towards people that have discredited it by calling it a Russian asset, a Russian whatever, fake news propaganda. That's the honest truth. But by that point, we should also tell you when she said that on 60 Minutes 4 years ago, the laptop was verified as real by the New York Post, a newspaper that's been operating in this country for a couple hundred years. The rest of the media was refusing to verify because they knew it would mean the end of Joe Biden a month before the election, or in this case, when that came out, maybe 8 or 9 days before the election. Leslie Stahl's introduction, which was seen by millions, claimed that the laptop was totally fake. Joe Biden was, of course, not corrupt. You should vote for him. A week later, Joe Biden would eke out an election by around 40,000 votes in a few states, after millions of people watched Leslie Stahl say that Joe Biden is not corrupt. That is called election interference of the highest order.
Rob Schmitt, host of Rob Schmitt Tonight, who went on to play a video of Trump's interview with Leslie Stahl back then compared to the unedited version that was recorded by the Trump team when he did the interview. It's completely a visual thing. It's not going to work on the podcast, but it's really amazing. If you didn't see it last night, go back on demand and check out last night's episode of Rob Schmitt Tonight. And on the new Finnerty last night with Rob Finnerty,
I wanted to talk about something that's on the ballot in 26 days that's not being mentioned, something that no one is really talking about. Yes, on November the 5th, you will either check a box for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. But by doing so, you'll also be voting for the power of the legacy media. If Kamala wins, the corporate media wins too, and they know it. NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post. Whether we like it or not, that is the legacy media in this country right now, and it's been that way for a long time. And by voting for Kamala, America will affirm everything that's happened over the last 4 years. We were told that Joe Biden was fit for office in 2020. We were told that COVID vaccines prevented COVID. We were told that Donald Trump was a Russian asset. Every day we were told something that wasn't true. And a vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for that lie to continue and every other lie that we've been told since Donald Trump came down that golden escalator in June of 2015. But maybe more importantly, by voting for Kamala, you are validating the cover-up, the lie that we've all been fed about the vice president. Because since Joe dropped out of the race, Kamala has had the media wind at her back. NBC, ABC, and CBS, the old guard in this industry, have done everything in their power to get their gal, the chosen one, across the finish line. And a vote for her is a vote for this to continue.
Please welcome back the next president of the United States.
She is charismatic and charming on television in a way that he fancies he is. That the camera loves Kamala Harris.
I think there is misogynation in all of this, black and white men. Big problem.
If you really care about democracy, then you only have one choice.
The Harris campaign especially urged people to vote for the country. Think about the country. Think about your children.
All right, so on the other side of that, of course, is Donald Trump, the Republican candidate. Yes, also a former president. That's an outsider somehow in Washington. Not welcome in highbrow D.C. society. Not welcome at those Georgetown garden parties that I hear about, or in Sun Valley or Davos. He's laughed at in polite company. The arrogance and ego of these people is unbelievable. But Donald Trump has something right now that no Republican candidate, including Trump himself, has ever had before. And it's what you're watching right now. We're part of it. Independent media, places like Newsmax, conservative podcasts. Think about what Elon Musk has done to Twitter. None of this existed the way it is now in 2016. It certainly wasn't like this 4 years ago. But Trump completely flipped that paradigm. And now millions of people every day, every month, get their news not from the corporate media, but from independent media. And that will be on the ballot box, just like everything else this November. If Trump wins, independent media wins. The First Amendment wins. Truth wins. You win. If Trump wins, we won't see another debate ever again on ABC or CBS. You'll see a debate right here. If Trump wins, the same media that has dominated thought and biased Americans against one another for the last 50 years. Remember the old days when you'd go to the TV and you had to click it like that? I can remember this when I was a kid in the 80s. CBS, NBC, ABC, and then maybe MASH or Cheers if it was, the later 80s. Dan Rather, Tom Brokaw, Peter Jennings. All right, those days are over, and that's what's on the ballot next month. It's really powerful if you think about it.
That's Rob Finnerty, host of his own show now, Finnerty, 8 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax. And let's wrap it up with an important segment from this morning's edition of Wake Up America with Charla McBride.
Less than a month out from the election, U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan agreed yesterday to unseal additional filings from special counsel Jack Smith in the election interference case against former President Donald Trump. This after a new evidence brief in the case was unsealed last week. Chutkan did grant Trump's legal team a 7-day stay on the order, leaving the team time to consider legal options. Joining me now, former New Jersey Superior Court judge and host of the Judging Freedom podcast, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Always great to see you.
Good morning, Charlotte.
So take me through this order by the judge. What does all this mean?
So
what happens now?
Here's the history. The Supreme Court came down with its immunity ruling, which basically removed parts of the original indictment against Donald Trump because some of what he had been indicted for, the Supreme Court found, was official presidential behavior that cannot form the basis for a criminal prosecution. So Judge Chutkan said to Jack Smith, you give me a brief and you justify the new indictment that you got after the immunity ruling. He filed that 160-page brief totally under seal. Parts of it had double seals on it. The judge said, well, the public's entitled to know what you filed. I'm going to remove the seal, not the double seals. Yesterday, she said, I'm going to remove the double seals, opening up the entire brief, exposing all of the government's evidence against the former president. Now, why would she do that? Well, the presumption is when you file a document with the court, it's public. It's the government. The public is entitled to know what the government is doing. This is the attitude that judges have because this is what the Supreme Court has ruled. Trump's lawyers, on the other hand, will say, well, yes, the public's entitled to it, but some of it is so prejudicial to our client, it will disrupt a very meaningful event in the United States of America.
The timing's interesting,
called
isn't it?
the presidential election campaign. So what Judge Chutkan did which is more than what most judges would do. I don't know if I ever did this. I'm ruling against you, but I'm going to give you 7 days to appeal me. So the ruling won't kick in until a week from yesterday, unless an appellate court rules sooner. So that's where we stand. I haven't seen this. I don't know what's in there. Judge Chutkan has seen it. Obviously, the prosecutors have seen it. They wrote it. The former president's lawyers have seen it. It could be scurrilous. It could be just the names of witnesses that the government didn't want their names out there. It could be nonsense. We won't know until it's revealed.
Judge Andrew Napolitano on Wake Up America. The one thing that I didn't talk about, which is big news in the so-called legacy media, which we have talked a lot about here, is former President Barack Obama campaigning for Kamala in Pittsburgh last night.
We are ready for a better story, one that helps us work together instead of turning against each other. Pennsylvania, we're ready for a President Kamala Harris.
Of course, the media is all giddy about this today. They brought in Obama to try and convince black men who are getting on the Trump train in record numbers to vote for Kamala. A new ABC News Ipsos poll shows only a third of Americans expect Harris to chart a new course different from President Biden. And earlier this week, a New York Times Siena College survey of likely male voters, this is all male voters, not just black male voters, showed Trump had a sizable lead nationally, 51% to 40% over Harris. Trump is also leading with Hispanic men specifically. Harris does continue to lead with women nationally. Today, the Trump train makes stops in Aurora, Colorado, and Reno, Nevada, where the vice president was yesterday. Then there's a Make America Great Again rally in Coachella, California tomorrow, and Prescott Valley, Arizona on Sunday. Vice President Harris is going to be back in D.C. for now. Will travel to Pennsylvania on Monday and most likely Florida next week. Her running mate, Governor Tim Walz, is doing some interviews today and tomorrow. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, by the way, is at the Southeastern Asian Summit in Laos, where he'll be talking about recent actions of China and the ongoing support for Ukraine. On Wall Street, the final trading day of the week opened in the red this morning. Traders looking forward to next week, the beginning of earnings season yet again. Be sure to keep up with all of the news today and throughout the weekend on Newsmax, and make sure you're streaming on Newsmax Plus for the most complete lineup of all your favorite shows, hosts, and guests, and the Trump rallies over the weekend. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the NEWSMAX Daily. Have a fantastic and safe weekend. Continued thoughts and prayers for all of my neighbors and friends here in Florida. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the NEWSMAX app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Hey, it's Jerry Callahan from The Callahan Show. You can listen to us every day. We react to the latest news, politics, sports, and all the madness in the world. I'll give you my opinion with a little edge, a little attitude. I'm an unapologetic right-winger, trapped behind enemy lines in deep blue Boston, so I'm used to taking on the mainstream media mob. You can hear us anywhere you get your podcast, or you can listen every day at newsmax.com/listen.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news.